said, "Oh, well, Carla's probably going to be interviewing you with Wynn." I'm like, "Okay," wrote that down. It's good. I just went right to the source. Okay.
No Carla.
No Carla. Got it down. She's crossed out. She's so gone.
Yeah. You got.
Now, is Wynn your real name?
Me. Yes.
Okay, great. And did you understand with endorsements on LinkedIn what I meant?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, because you had asked for two, and I went to your site, and neither of them were listed. I think it was podcasts, something with podcasts, and something with self-publishing, and neither were listed, just so you know. So I just endorsed everything. I just thought maybe a lot of people don't know what endorsing is. I'm kind of new to LinkedIn, but I'm liking it. Go ahead.
Put my LinkedIn profile up. Yeah.
You need to, yeah. I guess you need to go check it every now and then. And I'm just fairly new to it, so I'm really liking it. We're doing a summit, and I'm meeting a lot of people for this summit, and it's just nice getting to know people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. So I'm really enjoying that. And for people like you who reach out, it's great.
Yeah.
So thank you for your endorsements. Yeah, I know. People have told me for years, why aren't you doing LinkedIn? It's like, I don't really like social media, but I really like it. I have to admit.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, let's do this.
Okay.
Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And I'm just going to leave the background conversation in because I have Cynthia with me. And the reason why I got Cynthia on, number one, is to talk about chronic pain. Number two is to break the myth of fibromyalgia. I'm sure all of you in the morning, those of you who have watched Good Morning America or the Today Show, have seen the medical commercials, one being fibromyalgia. So now we have a teacher here today who's going to teach us about fibromyalgia, and Cynthia actually runs a chronic pain center out of Los Angeles, which I might get involved with because, as you guys know, I have cerebral palsy, but the secret is cerebral palsy is a bone and joint condition, and of course, cerebral palsy has a pain. Sometimes I happen to deal with it as it comes. I do alternative PCs, and so enough about me rambling on about cerebral palsy and pain issues. I'm going to let Cynthia take it away.
Hey, thank you, Wynn, so much for having me and for raising awareness of chronic pain. Just to tell my story briefly, it's a long story. It started 35 years ago when I was a 21-year-old ballerina, singer, and actor, and I just landed a part on the TV show Fame, when a minor ballet injury in my right leg triggered the chronic pain disease known as complex regional pain syndrome, also known as the suicide disease. And as a result of my doctors telling me for the first 13 and a half years of my illness that my physical problems were all in my head, I was left bedridden for a decade. I went from being a ballerina to bedridden for a decade, and I was unable to speak because the CRPS, it spread throughout my entire body and ravaged my vocal cords. I got very depressed. I thought a lot about suicide. I'd given up all hope. My family and friends left. It's a nightmare of a disease, and with time, obviously I survived, but it has not in any way been ever an easy journey. I have a wonderful partner, John. We're not allowed to marry legally because I'd lose my insurance benefits, my health care. But he's the greatest guy in the whole wide world, and I have him, and I survived in order to basically to tell my story and to save other women from what happened to me. It's mostly women who have chronic pain, so we promote better care and wellness at my nonprofit For Grace. So that was my Reader's Digest story. Wynn, did that work for you?
Oh, I appreciate the Reader's Digest.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely appreciate the Reader's Digest end of it.
And you brought up fibromyalgia, and the reason people are talking about fibromyalgia today is exactly what you said. We're all seeing commercials about Lyrica. I have fibromyalgia. I have about 12 autoimmune diseases now, including lupus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis. It goes on and on. We all seem to collect these autoimmune diseases. But I also notice and very aware that people who get diagnosed with fibromyalgia very often don't even know the symptoms, don't have the symptoms. Fibromyalgia is a wastebasket diagnosis that doctors are using now to sell the drugs. So that's really disturbing to me, and we all need to make sure that we actually have the disease. We don't want to have these diseases, and I just think that when so many people are diagnosed with a disease that don't have it, it hurts those of us who are truly suffering. And with fibromyalgia...
Can I
Go ahead,
jump in
sweetie.
here for a second, Cynthia?
Yeah.
I like the term wastebasket disease because CP is turning into wastebasket disease, and they're just trying to diagnose CP from a textbook. And I have a PT, and I'm saying this live on the air. And the first time she met me, it's like, oh, you have CP, let's do this, and this. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry I pushed you in PT. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Don't treat CP right out of the textbook, please.
Right.
I mean...
Well, we're all individuals,
Yes.
I like how you're saying textbook, because so often our healthcare professionals see us as, oh, here comes Wynn with her CP, or here comes Cynthia with her complex regional pain syndrome, or here comes so-and-so. But I love the integrative approach, where it's like, oh, here comes Wynn today, or Cynthia's coming today, or Joe Schmo is coming, But they're coming, and we're going to talk about how they are, and how are they doing? Are they doing well? What are the problems?
Exactly.
And speaking of PTs, I think Western medicine is so dangerous. They have almost killed me on a number of occasions, and more recently, this isn't recent, I have an arm that went into a severe contracture about 30 years ago now, about 28 years ago, and my physical therapist wanted to try to straighten it out. And I didn't want to do that because we know our bodies so well, and I thought I could lose. I went into a partial remission. I thought I could lose that remission. And so we had a lot of conversation about it, and I finally agreed to let her work on the back of my head, neck, and on my back, and she thought that would help straighten it out. She literally cheated, yanked my arm, and broke my elbow. So I had a really serious problem. Yeah, we have to be so careful when we're sick with the medical community. We have to be our own advocate.
So careful with chronic disease. I am the first woman to be using an exoskeleton. And for those of you who don't know what an exoskeleton is, an exoskeleton is a robot that helps you walk.
Wow.
And it helps the paralyzed walk, and I'm the first woman in the country, we believe, walking in it with cerebral palsy. And
amazing.
if you go to the Bridging Bionics Foundation Facebook page, you will see a video of me walking along with PTs and in that exoskeleton. But
it comes with a but.
The exoskeleton is lovely, but due to my tone, I have a bad kneecap that likes to do a sideways dance, and then causes chronic pain because of out and the lovely and all that. So one day I am in the exoskeleton. And, of course, my kneecap, what does it do? A sideways dance. And I am standing there, all on one leg, and the PT and the volunteer get freaked out. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I said, sit me down. I said this very carefully. I said, sit me down and release the machine, and then don't put me back in the machine. Let the kneecaps heal because the ligaments have now been pulled and all this good stuff. But I can't.
Sure.
PTs get so freaked out when they see people walking with chronic pain conditions. And Cynthia, you're the expert here. What do we tell PTs that get so freaked out, that have never seen a person with fibromyalgia, with all these chronic pain conditions, including cerebral palsy, and people think they can hurt me, which they can, but they can't. So what do we tell these PTs and doctors other than to go jump and wake?
I know, because I was going to say, walk, run. Actually, run, don't walk. Away from them because they're most likely going to hurt us. I mean that's my first feeling. Of course, I want them to get educated. I don't know what to tell them. I guess is we just want it. We're normal, and we want our lives like everybody else does, and look at us like other people, but we have these problems that maybe you don't understand very well. And I think that often, like my internist says to me, she says, I don't know that much about all these chronic pain diseases. I'm going to learn from you. And so I always teach her things, but I have a doctor who's willing to learn, and she wants to learn, and she's young. I wouldn't go really I don't go to doctors who don't know pain inside and out at this point because they've hurt me too much, and I think we need to just keep educating them. Like I was told, I had a cyst in my breast, and I had a doctor check it, and then she said, the cyst is fine, but you've got something called DCIS, and this is going to kill you. I remember she pronounced she said the name of my disease, CRPS, wrong. She got the acronym wrong, and she said, I know what the CPRS did to you. She got it wrong. And she said, but this breast cancer is going to kill you. And I honestly was not afraid because I've learned to just take it all with a huge grain of salt when it comes to what the doctors tell me. And I researched DCIS. I found out that in 1% of cases, it ever becomes invasive. So it's really not something to worry about. And the doctor told me, no, you have to have a lumpectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation. So I knew, well, that's any kind of procedure spreads CRPS. And, I mean, it most likely does. And we'd known I had one procedure that it did spread it. And so I decided to watch and wait, and the doctor completely freaked out. Here I am 14 years later, absolutely fine. I just refused their care. And we need to learn about overcare too, and we need to just tell them what we want and tell them what we know about our bodies, and we need to go to our doctors very educated. We need to know all there is to know about our diseases, our, whatever we're dealing with, our conditions, whatever people want to call them. But we need to go in very educated, and we need to know what we want, and we need to not be afraid of saying no, or saying you're abusing me. I mean, I was told things like during the first 15 years of my illness, I was told you have stage fright. You have tendinitis from Mars. You're enjoying the secondary gain that you're receiving from your attentive partner. One doctor told me to take a truth serum to prove I was making it up. One doctor said, you're only a woman anyway. It doesn't really matter. Just shoot yourself in the head.
What?
Yeah. The thing, and I heard crazier. It got so crazy that it was actually, in a weird way, it empowered me because I thought, okay, these people are crazy. And I started thinking, they don't really believe what they're saying to me. Because one doctor said to me, he was mad at me and he yelled, I don't understand why you don't just take the psychologically induced diagnosis. Chances are in a decade or so, they'll tell you what it really is. That empowered me. Because I thought, okay, so you guys don't really even believe what you're saying to me. They were all men, too. And so that's just really interesting. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. What do you think we should tell these doctors? Because I'd walk away from any doctor you're talking about.
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I read your book, so I knew that you had all this, and so I knew you were going to play interviewer.
A little bit. Well, I'm curious because it's a good question.
I think we should. Well, other than knocking them over the head with a textbook and say, look, we're all different. We have all different fibromyalgias here. Fibromyalgia, just like CP, affects people differently. And so I think we need to educate them through podcasts, audiobooks.
Yeah. There you go.
They need to learn. They need to be teachers. They need to be students. We need to be teachers.
Yeah, I agree, and we're kind of answering the same. It was interesting because we're doing at For Grace, we're doing a Change Agent Summit where we're bringing people from all the different sectors of the healthcare systems together to decide what we need to do in California to make pain care better. And we're doing a lot of interviews with people who know a lot about pain. And I interviewed a nurse yesterday, and she said that one of the big problems is that nurses learn from older nurses, and the older nurses don't have the new information. So they're giving, like, these old ways of thinking, they're handing them down. And that really upset me. You know, so yeah, we need to have cutting edge information out there all the time, and hopefully the older doctors will want to learn it. We need to change, the medical curriculum, medical school curriculum. We need to have teachers who know exactly what's going on with pain, with disability, with different diseases, with different conditions, so that the medical students who are so open, they're like sponges, they soak in information. We need to make sure we're giving them the right information. Because I've learned that now when I go see a doctor, I always say, what do you know about complex regional pain syndrome? What do you know about chronic pain? And for the most part, especially if it's a university clinic, they generally know a lot. So it's getting a lot better. So that's good news. But I think with somebody from the old school who doesn't understand, and because I hear this all the time, the best thing for us to do is just to walk away, because they're abusing us, and we need to. Also, they will probably hurt us. Emotionally, psychologically, physically, they stain our psyche so profoundly that we very often never really truly recover. And so I think it's best for us to just move on, because there are a lot of really good, educated doctors out there about pain. So I guess that's my answer. Now that I've had some time to talk it through with myself.
Yeah, that's your answer. So, Cynthia, what has been the biggest entrepreneurial challenge of your life and entrepreneurial challenge of running your pain center?
The biggest entrepreneurial challenge of my life?
Yeah.
I guess it's that the work that I do is still really not accepted. People don't understand that chronic pain is very often a disease in and of itself. And healthcare professionals tend to think that pain is a symptom to an underlying problem. Take care of the problem and the pain will go away. And sadly, during the time that they're saying you're crazy or thinking what I just said, we very often lose our chance for a cure. If I had been diagnosed and treated aggressively and by people who knew what they were doing, I would have walked away from this disease. Here I am 35 years later using a wheelchair, always in pain. Now I've got all the, I said a collection of these diseases and always suffering. And so I think that's the hardest part, is that they still don't understand the healthcare crisis pain is. Go ahead, Wynn.
You sound like me. Here I am at 30 years old, still using a goddamn walker, and still haven't regained my mobility back. And you guys know why I lost my mobility. I lost my mobility because of scoliosis surgery gone wrong. Let's just put it that way. Scoliosis surgery goes horribly wrong. They try and kill me by giving me propofol infusion syndrome, and letting my spine go dead for 20 minutes.
Right.
And so here I am dealing with CP, which as an underlying effect of CP, it's a chronic pain condition because of the tone and because of CP, just the way CP manifests. in me.
Right.
And yeah, so here I am. I have 4 assistive devices. No.
Wow.
5, 6, 7. 7 assistive devices just to help me walk. And,
Wow.
just to help me get them out. I have 3 walkers. I own 3 walkers, you guys. And then these PTs and doctors are looking at me like you're nuts with trying to put you on medication. And I keep saying, oh no, to medication.
Yeah, good for you.
And they keep, the only thing I am on is vitamin D because,
that's good.
my vitamin D level is low. But,
Right.
no, but we need to keep educating
Right.
these doctors and educating the public.
Exactly. I mean, and it's so important to educate the public because, like, with my, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. There we go. I believe that with my family, who wasn't strong enough to survive this and be supportive, I believe that if I put myself in their shoes, I'm really a strong person, but I don't know. It's interesting that I'm the one who got sick, but it's really it was a horrible thing for them to see their sister get so sick, and the happy-go-lucky singing, dancing Cynthia, suddenly screaming in pain year after year, and how can a ballet injury spread? And it didn't make any sense. And then the doctor started saying she was crazy, and the horrible things that were said by these caregivers, these people who are supposed to do no harm. And I really think that the hypocritical oath is what I call it that they took, the hypocritical oath. If those healthcare professionals, if those doctors had treated me well, even if I hadn't gotten better, but I would have, because you do, I don't think that the family would have fallen apart. So I think that everybody, the patient and the family members and everybody who loves you gets victimized by the system that doesn't understand. So that's why it's important to not only trust the healthcare professionals, but we must make aware and educate people, just people. Everybody needs, the public needs to know about pain. We need to know about disability. We need to know about death. We need to know about disease. We're so frightened of death. I mean, I literally have had people come up to me in my wheelchair and say, I can't be your friend. I'm afraid of you because I've heard you're so young and pretty, or you're so thin, things like that. If it could happen to you, it could happen to me. And I've actually asked them, what do you think, what are you so afraid of? And they've said death. I mean, a wheelchair equals death. And I've had people say, I can't be your friend, you're too ill, and I'm afraid, but see, if we had education out there and if we looked at illness differently, like in other cultures, I don't think that families and friends would be running. I don't think they'd be running for the hills. There's no reason to be afraid. If I see someone in a wheelchair, I don't run away. I can't run away, but I wouldn't.
Wouldn't be running either.
Yeah, it's a fear that it's so rampant in our society, and it's disturbing to me that elderly people are put into homes rather than admired and loved, by their families, because my goodness. I've got a 95-year-old father-in-law he's a gem of a man, and we spend as much time as we can with him, and this man, he tells us about being in World War II and, in a gunner, jet. And it's just like the things he's lived through. It's so amazing. And I value that. My partner John and I, we've been together 37 years. We really value that. And we find it very sad and tragic that so many people don't. They fear it and want to get rid of the fear, the problem, and therefore warehouse the elderly person or the person with pain. And that's what's really killing us, is the isolation in our country.
Can I jump in here for a couple
Please
seconds?
jump in, Wynn.
And your story is so fascinating. You like me, I feel like I should give you a virtual hug right now.
Aww,
but I feel like
I'm feeling it.
fly out to see you and fly out to see your team, and let's have a sit down. No, I seriously do. I want to fly out and see you and see your team and have a sit down and talk about this. But
Yeah.
I know you mentioned at the beginning of the show, and if you can extend on this more, I would be so grateful. But if you don't feel like talking about it publicly, you don't have to. Just say, Wynn, you're nuts. I don't want to talk about it. But you said
there's very few things that I don't want to talk about publicly, Wynn.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
No, do I. I'll talk about CP all day long if you let me. And so you said to me, I have a partner. My partner's name is John. And I can't get married to him.
Right.
Why?
Well, I could get married to him, but I would probably die. Yeah, he asked me to marry him when we were 20.
Would probably repeat that? I heard you, but
that's an important distinction. I could marry John, but I wouldn't have health care anymore, and I wouldn't have a caregiver. So I would probably die. So that's been he asked me to marry him when we were 20, and ironically, I got sick when we were 21. And when we were 20, I laughed. I thought it was so sweet. And I said, we have our whole lives to get married. But by 21, it was pretty much over. And then we did plan a wedding in it was our mid-20s. And then I remember my mom and John went down to the Social Security office because I was on SSI and SSD. I think I got on SSD later because they were making a mistake, but Social Security was making a mistake. But I also get my health care, Medicare, Medi-Cal, as a result of those are my benefits as well, and I need those benefits.
Yep.
So I would lose that if I married John. Unless I married, a multimillionaire, I can't afford to get married. And so many of us with chronic pain and illness, we can't get married, or many of us have to divorce in order to get health care. So it's a very sad thing. John and I had a commitment ceremony in 1995, right after I got diagnosed on New Year's Eve, my birthday. It was so beautiful, but people always say, oh, you're married. You're more married than anyone, but guess what? We don't have any of the legal rights that married people have. Yeah. So we're not married, no matter what anybody says. We're not, and we feel that every day.
I would say, now I'm spilling my secrets with Cynthia here. Okay.
Most people do with me, I've noticed.
If I got married, you guys, Cynthia proves my point. See, I want a boyfriend, but I don't want to get married to that boyfriend. I don't want to be his caregiver or his dependent. I want that boy to be financially stable so I don't lose my health benefits, because when push comes to shove, you guys, and you guys know this by now, and Cynthia is about to find this out. If anything went medically wrong with me and I had to spend, let's say, a certain amount of money on me, I would shut down my company in 2 seconds flat and focus on me. And Cynthia is saying, right, because she is raised with me. So people with disabilities can't get married necessarily. Right. And that's the sad fact. That's the sad fact, especially with what Mr. Donald Trump is doing with Obamacare right now. Thank you very much. Let's be really listened on this podcast. So that's my life vision. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to not be single, although being single would be easier. But I
not necessarily.
Not necessarily, yeah. But I don't want to be that boyfriend's dependent or that boyfriend's caregiver.
But Wynn, if you had a boyfriend and you fell head over heels in love, wouldn't you want to get married? I don't think it's that you don't want to. I think that you can't. I think, is that what you're really saying? You can't, rather than I don't want.
You hit the nail right on the head.
Well, because I lived it for over 35 years. I mean,
you hit the nail right on the head.
Because I get mad when people say you don't want to get married. Yes, we do. We've been wanting to get married for 35 years now. and then people say, but you can, and I get frustrated with that. So that's why I clarified with you and said we can, but the choice is, if I get catastrophically ill, if I have I have catastrophic illness already. So if it becomes so bad that I need constant care, what am I going to get, a divorce? You know what I mean? It just, and start all over. It just doesn't make sense to. But anyway, it's just something that's sad that's coming out in the media much more. A lot more people are asking me to tell this story, about not being able to comfortably make the choice to marry John. And so I'm reading more and more people's stories, people who can't get married, feel they can, or having to make that choice, or having to make the choice of getting divorced to get health care for themselves or health care for their child, which is a very sad state in America. Very sad. I'm ashamed.
As the thing I said, I would love to get married, but legally I can't. Legally, I can't. And that's the first, now this is going to make me cry on this podcast. Oh boy. Here we go. This is the first time doing this podcast I have realized that. So thank you, Cynthia, for making me realize that, because I want to live a normal life.
Oh, honey, it's okay. I make everyone cry. I do. I'm very real, and I want to talk about real things. These are real feelings. Yeah, and it hurts me.
I can't.
And it hurts me when I hear people say, "Go ahead." We're talking over each other.
I can't live normally. I can't marry because of my disability. Because if I get married, my disability insurance, aka Obamacare, would go nuts.
Wow. Yeah. So you're making the wise choice, and we just keep, as you were saying earlier, we keep educating, the public, and if people get enraged, and people can make a change. I hope in 2018 we will make a change in the Congress, and maybe we'll get this Oompa Loompa out of the White House, and we'll start moving forward again, rather than backward. Moving toward love rather than toward hate. Right?
I love it, Cynthia. You put it right on the head. You put the nail right in the coffin. You said, let's move to this Oompa Loompa out of the office. God.
We must. I
said to my dad today, and he's upstairs, he's not listening to this podcast interview, but
you never know.
He's very supportive of my podcast. And so I said to my dad today, it makes me sick, and it makes me want to throw up, and it makes me just sick what they're doing for health care. And it happened on my 30th birthday.
I'm sorry.
On my 30th birthday. June.
Oh, that's a big birthday, too.
2017. And day one, when this Uncle Loompa went into office, and I don't want to get political on this show, but I will.
We already have.
We already have.
Too late to go back now, Win.
Too late to go back.
And why not get political? We're talking about, go ahead.
I'm sorry if I lose fans over my political feelings, but my political feelings don't take health insurance away. Make love and not hate, as Cynthia said. And so when this Oompa Loompa went into office, day one, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I asked my dad, what happened to my health insurance? Because I checked my phone at midnight. I cried myself back to sleep. And so he goes, Win, the sun is still shining. Don't worry about your health insurance. I am one of the lucky ones that if SHIT hits the fan, I will still have health insurance. Cynthia, you are lucky too, that we have supportive families that will do everything in their power to help us.
Right. That's true.
But here's my next question.
What is it?
My next question is, what if the unsupportive family is out there and the child or the adult is listening to this podcast? What do they do? Do they work for themselves, or do they find an equal opportunity employer that will cover their health insurance, or do they just run to Cynthia's Foundation and say, help?
No, don't do that. No, I'm kidding. I don't have a supportive family. I mean, I have a mother who supports me, but other than that, I don't have a supportive family. So I guess I'm that person. I'm not quite understanding the question. What does somebody with an unsupportive family do? Because that would be me. I have, on John's side, support.
Yeah. What does someone with an unsupportive family do? Because what I'm realizing is families can either accept disabilities as a whole, or they just want to push their disabilities underneath the rug.
Yeah, mine does the opposite. The latter, they push it under the rug, and they have a lot of guilt and stuff like that. So so for me, I never ever go to family for support because it's the opposite. They're just except for my mother who's wonderful, and of course John. I consider John my family, and John would throw himself into a volcano before seeing me get hurt. I mean, he gave up. He was a very promising actor. Gave up his wonderful career to take care of me, and now he works with me at For Grace, and I really am his life, and I can't imagine. I mean, there is no one in the world more supportive than John. So I'm very, very lucky. And people always say to me, they say you just got lucky, and it's like, yeah, I am. I just said I'm lucky, but it's also these are also choices that we make. I mean, I found John. We became a couple before I even got sick, and that was a choice. He'd been with he'd had other girlfriends, and he'd broken their hearts. They weren't the right person for him. So when I hear you just got lucky, it's like, yeah, actually, I made some choices there. It's just kind of like relationships don't just grow on trees.
No, they don't.
I don't know. Whenever I hear that, it's like no. Also, relationships. You need to read my book. There was so much work that went into our relationship, and it's very, very painful what we've been through. And I don't know. People who read the book generally say, "I don't know how you're alive, and I don't know how you two are still together." I mean, it's just we have survived. That's another thing that people don't. They don't really give us credit for it a lot because we just get along so well, and we're kind of like somebody just said to me this morning, well, you and John are one. But it's like, well, actually we're two people, I don't know, because we're such a good couple, I think people just think it's not hard. And I don't tell people what I wrote in the book. I wanted to write everything because I felt that if I didn't, Ron Kovic helped me because there was a couple things that John did not want me to write about. And I said, but why am I writing the book? And he said, well, to help people. And I said, well, if what would happen if I wrote about these two things? And he said, I'm afraid you're going to be judged negatively. And I said, but does that matter? And so he said no, and then Ron Kovic was like the tiebreaker and said, you got to, the only way to shake up the world is to tell everything. And otherwise, what's the point of writing a book? And people always say, how did you survive the suicide disease for like 20, 25, now 35 years? And I always answer that question with, well, that's a book. And so if I didn't write everything, it wouldn't have made sense. And then when my agent said, literally, the publishers will never believe this story. That's when my co-writer said, you need to bring John in as your partner, caregiver, and witness. And he's a writer. So he wrote a John's take at the end of each chapter responding to what I wrote about in the chapter. And I was blown away because I had no idea what he had been thinking throughout because he wasn't, he's a man. He's rather stoic like men. He's also a very much a caregiver, and so everything needed to be about Cynthia. So when he first started writing, it was about Cynthia, and we'd all say, that's great, but it's about Cynthia. And when he finally started writing for himself, after going to a therapist and after asking me for permission to hurt me, which I happily granted him, it was like the most incredible couples therapy you could ever have. And I really believe in narrative therapy, because I went into my second partial remission after sending the first draft of that book to my co-writer. And I do believe that some of it is, pulling up, purging, exercising all of that pain, sorrow, and trauma that was really, that helped me. That's part of self-management, and we all need to be practicing self-management. Anyway, I'll go on and on. I'll stop.
No, but I wanted you to share that story because now I want to read your book. I hope you'll be
jolted by it. It's jolting. It's painful. I chose
I hope it's on audio tape. If not, I'll get it on Kindle.
Yeah, it's I chose an unsafe read because the chronic pain the chronic pain experience is so unsafe, and I wanted everyone to have to put it down at least twice. People say it reads like a thriller, and they read it like, in 2 nights. But I wanted them to put it down twice to either judge me or due to fear. And it's just such a frightening, horrible experience. I just didn't want it. I wasn't willing to fake it, But at the same time, it's inspirational. Somebody called me yesterday and said, your book saved my life. And it was very meaningful. And when I hear that, it's okay. It's really worth doing that,
I've been told about my original book, I Come a Win, which could be found on Amazon. You guys want to go pick up 2 Kleenex box books about chronic pain, one about CP, and I need to write, I am actually writing the next book, but I need to completely redo I Win and update it to where I'm at now and do a chronic pain book.
There's always more writing to do. So much writing.
There's always
I just got off.
Cynthia.
Go ahead. Shoot. I'm ready for you, Wynn.
Shoot. As we wrap up this interview, I have 2 more questions for you. And the first one is, if you had to be educated by anyone, who would it be and why?
I would be educated by Jane Goodall. She was my hero she's my hero today, but she first became my hero when I was in grade school, and the teacher would show us movies, and I remember learning that a woman, Jane Goodall, actually got men to they had to change the meaning of man, the definition of man, because the definition was the tool makers. And she learned and proved that chimpanzees were also tool makers. So I love that a woman got man to redefine man. I just loved her, and she just seemed like love and goodness to me. So, I work for women's rights, and so that I think she did educate me in a way. And then I met her probably about maybe 15 years ago, and immediately I just heard her speak, and I'm just like, I must know this woman. And we just bonded, and she actually admires people who survive extraordinary pain, disability more than anybody else, and then go on to make the world a better place. So I think we're a good fit. She's on for Grace's board now, so I get to work with her, and I love her dearly. And when I hug her, I feel like I'm hugging like a boulder, because she carries the weight of the world in her. But I also feel like I'm hugging a feather, because she's so light, and she's goodness, So I love her. She's my hero to today. So it would be her. It would be Jane.
It would be Jane Goodall. And
yes.
For those of you who don't know what Jane Goodall did, she went into the forest of Africa and saved chimpanzees, of all things.
She did, and now she's doing something called Roots and Shoots, and she's literally trying to save the planet through our children, because she feels there is hope, but she doesn't know, especially with the political, the political arena we're in right now. She's very uncertain, as so many of us are.
Moved on to different projects, but still a good one. And Cynthia, where can people find you? Where can people find Grace, the foundation? And yeah, maybe you get a surprise visit from Win next summer. I don't know.
Where can they find For Grace? Our website is www.forgrace.org, and that's spelled out For Grace. And if you can remember, it's for the little girl that Sean and I couldn't have because I got so sick. So For Grace is spelled Forgrace, and remember, it's a nonprofit organization. So www.forgrace.org. And was there another question that I missed? Win?
And Cynthia?
Yes.
I'm going to let you ask me a couple questions that you've been dying to ask me.
I'm dying to know how you got the name Win, and is that your real name?
Yes, that is my real name. And
Cool.
it was given to me by my maternal grandmother on my mom's side, and I will post a picture of her and I on Instagram so you guys can see
Cool.
her. She's passed on now, but she lives with diseases, Alzheimer's and different diseases throughout her life in chronic pain, and
really?
she lived up until her 90s in her house, thank you very much.
Wow.
On the East Coast, never was put in a home. We had 24-hour nursing care for her. She was beloved. I still miss her to this day. And
I'll bet you do.
I lost my mom in 2010, and then I lost her in 2013. So
I'm so sorry, Win.
I lose the two women that I love dearly,
gosh.
one being my namesake. And
wow.
so love that. But yes, that Win is my real name.
So I'm wondering, what kind of pain did your grandmother have? You mentioned her chronic pain.
She had lower limb girdle dystrophy. She had lower limb girdle dystrophy, and my aunt, my mom's sister, has it. And what I've been told is lower limb girdle dystrophy. And Cynthia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, starts eating away at your joints and eating away at your bones, and you can't lift things. And so I need to get an expert here on lower limb, on this podcast on lower limb girdle dystrophy. Thank you.
You do.
So if you know anyone, or if my family knows anyone who's specialized in it, please send them. Send them my way, because
someone will know the right person, I think. And I'm curious also, when you mentioned that you have chronic pain and you brought up your kneecap. Is that where your chronic pain is exclusively, or do you have it in other places in your body?
I have it all over. Due to what they call tone, which is CP turned, my tone goes off 1,000 miles a minute.
I see. Okay.
My left hand, and it's a mess. I'm a mess. I'm a walking medical mess. So
you should. Yeah. I wish you could come to our summit in September, but I know you're. I can't remember which state you live in. Do I know which state you live in? Where do you live? Colorado, okay. You're not very close, yeah.
No, I could easily make it out to you guys, but I have
to be come. We're in California.
I have to be working. That's mine's only nice of you, but I have to be working. But here's my plan, you guys. In the next 3 years, I am going to become a freelance writer and exit education, so I can write books for a living and making my solo entrepreneur mark in the next 3 years.
Wonderful. That's exciting. You got it mapped out, but you have to know things. This is like the biggest lesson. Things don't turn out the way you planned sometimes, but we're so much stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what, boy, I learned that early. And I'm somebody, I'm a kind of a control freak, you know, the ballerina. And I had my life planned out, and I was doing everything really early and doing everything right. And we just don't know what's around the corner. None of us do. And, you know, it could be better than we thought. It could be worse than we thought, but it's going to be different. I'm not saying that you're not going to do everything you're saying, but it's just I thought about that before we spoke, about how life just turns out differently than we think. And I think it turns out that way for everybody. And also, it's so important to know that we're so much stronger than we think we are. And people always say, how did you survive that? I could never survive this. And I say, but you don't know what you can survive until you're faced with it. And that's when you make the decision. You know, I mean, we just don't know. People don't give themselves enough credit, I think, so often. I don't know what put me there, but I had to go there for some reason.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, who is your biggest support person? Who supports you most?
Oh, who is my biggest support person? It would have been my biological mom, who's now turned into my soon-to-be stepmom, yes, soon to be, at 30 years old. I acquired a stepmom, and she's the big support person, and so is my stepsister, and of course my dad. He's always supportive. So I do have a supportive family. I'm very, very, very lucky. And
you are. It's great. But see, CP is so different from chronic pain because people understand it, and I think that's the difference.
Yes, they do,
yeah.
but we still have to educate them about the underlying causes of CP. We still have to educate them.
With chronic pain, with high-impact chronic pain, loss of family, loss of spouse, suicide are actually considered symptoms. They're normal, you know. But it's with other diseases, it's not. It's what I was saying about people don't understand the health crisis that pain is. They don't understand how severe it is, how it really takes everything away. You know, and in order to survive, you have to completely reinvent yourself, if you can. And people just aren't aware of that. And there's just such a stigma. It's kind of like mental illness. There's such a stigma and just lack of education. And as a result, people just are afraid, and they leave. And I often say we don't do what we're supposed to do. We don't, because we're so ill, but we don't die and we don't get better. You know, I mean, once it's high impact pain. And I think people are more comfortable with the other once you're this ill. Sadly. But we're changing that. Now I hear from people who say...
We are changing that.
We are, and I mean, it took me 13 and a half years to get a diagnosis. It took me 15 years to get care, and now when I hear from somebody who says it took me a year, I'm kind of blown away. So look how far we've come.
Yeah.
You know, yay! We've come a long way, baby.
What would be closing statement for this interview?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I think I heard another voice in there for a moment.
Yes, you did. And
okay, good. It wasn't just voices in my head.
No,
a good thing.
It wasn't just voices in your head. What
okay,
would be
good.
closing statement for this interview?
Thank you for doing the work that you're doing, Wynn. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And everyone out there, know that you can do it. And whatever you're surviving, you're not alone. There are so many people out there who are surviving the same thing, and that we're much stronger as a group. We're a much louder, more powerful voice as a group. So we all need to work together to educate others.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end this interview, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. As I said, you guys can probably find Full Place Cynthia's Foundation online, and we'll have all of Cynthia's information in the show notes. And I enjoyed our conversation today. Our conversation went every which way, but that's okay because we need to get the topics out. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thanks to you guys.
The host has joined the conference.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. I hope I didn't interview your call. I just saw my notes about
Oh,
calling
that's
5 minutes
okay.
early.
You
So
were following the rules. Cynthia wanted to go on and on and on. I'm like, Cynthia, we gotta wrap this up. But that's okay because her subject is as important as yours. She was talking about chronic pain, and you're talking about getting kids help in colleges. And I will say this is the second part of your interview, and then the third part will be finding equal opportunity employment and all that good stuff.
yes.
So let's do this.
All right. Sounds good.
Sounds good.